Hello everyone. So, my name is Viola. I think we've met before in your methodology class, and today I'm going to speak about a special ritual which may serve as a case study for your own case studies about rituals. So this is going to be a neo-pagan ritual in Hungary called the Crown of Light ceremony. But what I really would like to highlight from this case study are those elements that may be useful in the study of rituals in general. Well, today we're going to speak about a contemporary ritual, but these elements can also be important in more classical rituals. So one of them is the role of objects, in this case the Hungarian Holy Crown. The place of ritual utterances, that is what people say during, before, and after a given ritual. The way the ritual space is used, for instance, how people circulate in it, and also the relationship between participants, the way the ritual's participants interact during the ritual, before and after. Rituals are a focal part of my research, in which I'm interested in how contemporary rituals, such as this one, shape identity. I work mainly on New Age and Neo-Pagan rituals, but I'll speak about that a little bit later. Another thing I wanted to highlight, well, of course, it's sort of a pleading for the study of ritual, is that rituals are not only religious in nature, but they can be secular as well. And the study of ritual is generally ascribed to non-Western people, but if we look at our societies, in the Western societies, there are plenty of rituals. Just think about an intronization ceremony, or the appointment of a politician in a parliament. These are highly ritualized events, or the inauguration of a building or of a statue, or just think about the wedding ceremony. So our society is just as full of rituals as non-Western societies are full of rituals, and rituals in general in the West or the rest, they're all essential in the regulation of social relationships. This is the thing. So the study of ritual is really fruitful in the understanding of social organization and identity, as we will see. So, yes. Preliminary remark is that the ceremony was invented. So this ritual I'm going to speak about was completely invented. It didn't exist before 1980, as we will see. And it was invented in the frame of what I call contemporary pagan renewal. And I think that its study allows to observe the interplay of religious and political identities, how they are shaped, formed, and the ideologies that in the background. So first, I will outline what this neo-paganism thing is. Then I will have to speak a little bit about the crown, because it's its central object. And then I'll speak about the ritual in itself. So neo-paganism is a loosely organized movement which emerged, well, let's say in the 1970s, and it's closely related to the religious transformations that occurred in the second half of the 20th century, which we call secularization, which is characterized by the emergence of new practices that usually are referred to as the New Age or contemporary spirituality. The important thing about these new practices is that they evolve in rupture with traditional religious institutions. the people who practice these religions or new religious forms are in general wary of institutionalized religions like Christianity or others. What is specific to neo-paganism is that the rituals they practice are inspired in ancient or indigenous traditions. Maybe you might have heard about rituals, for instance, celebrated at the Stonehenge at the summer solstice. There are many druids there. Everybody dresses up like a druid or some kind of ancient figure, and they celebrate the summer solstice there. They can also be inspired in North American indigenous traditions or Amazonian traditions. But the aim of these rituals is not to recreate exactly what North American Indians do, but the spirit in which these people act. These ancient traditional practices are put into the service of self-knowledge, self-enhancement, well-being. They're put into the service of personal development. They are transformative in a certain way. There is a slight difference between neo-paganism in the West, so in the UK and the US or in Western Europe, and Eastern Europe. What is very, very conspicuous in Eastern and Central Europe is an ideological affinity with the political right, because because Eastern European pagans are inspired by local traditions. They aim to reconstruct their ancestors' religious practices and not others like Druids and North American Indians' practices. Of course, this is not so clear-cut, but that's the way it can be outlined. And yeah, I think that's all we can say for now in general. And now let's take a look at contemporary pagan renewal in Hungary. So, as these images illustrate, neo-pagans in Hungary take inspiration from Hungarian history, from the foundation myths, which some of you may know, the honfoglalás, when Hungarians' ancestors came into the Pannonian Basin at the end of the 9th century. So they strive to reconstruct a religion that is a form of, some sort of a local shamanism, or an ancestral culture founded on esoteric principles. This means, this is very general, but most neo-pagans say that Hungarian language contains esoteric knowledge. The words are very ancient, and they assume that this is some kind of ritual language which allows to express universal truths. So this is an example, and a very interesting thing, which is it's a characteristic of neo-pagans in general. They're very intellectualized. They read a lot, and what is particular to Hungary is that they also write a lot and speak a lot. So if you look up on the internet, you can find thousands of web pages on these ancient Hungarian historical topics in an esoterical approach. So this is what the result of this is, a sort of an intellectual industry composed by books. There are editors that specialize in these books. And you can also watch lots of online videos, like public talks about the Hungarian past and how Hungarians are supposed to live today. Yeah. Okay. the fact that there are many websites, books, editors, and all could mean that neo-pagans are all over the country. And it is not false to say that, because during the past 10, 20 years, we can see that this proto-historical past is is being evoked in the public space more and more. So an illustration to that is the Hungarian Pavilion at the World Exposition in 2015, which is, well, it's not evident, but it's a shamanic drum. And when you travel through Hungary, you might notice the city signs where the city's name is written with a runic alphabet. And there is another very good example is the Kultai festival, which takes place in August, which is a huge festival that attracts tens of thousands of people and is completely inspired by this ancient Hungarian past. So one might think that all these people are neo-pagans. And the existing literature on contemporary pagan renewal says that, which is based on discursive analysis or analysis of discourse, is that this movement might be coextensive with the political right. Some authors call it political religion or civil religion, which are really, really big concepts and dangerous concepts because we don't really know what they are. Authors consider that this use of national symbols corresponds to a sacralization of the nation, but at the same time it's a subculture. But how can it be a subculture if it's all over the place? So this is quite puzzling. And so in the corner you can see a little drawing. It's supposed to be a brain who is really puzzled. It's my brain, probably. But the question is that these neo-pagan groups remain quite invisible in Hungarian society, but at the same time their productions are quite visible. So why aren't all Hungarian citizens who sympathize with the right wing, why aren't they all neo-pagan? That's the question. And for me, analyzing their rituals is pretty inspiring in this question. So I conduct field work in two emblematic neo-pagan circles in Budapest. One of them is a shamanic circle, the picture you can see on the left, and an intellectual circle, the one on the right. So they're very different. Their conceptions about the past and how and what ancient Hungarian religion should look like are quite different. But as I hear them speak, I could notice that they do have conservative values, and they are really, really critical about society and its problems, but their concerns are not mainly political. I hope this will become clear how this happens. What is particular to them is that they have lots of individual rituals, especially the shamanic circles, but in general, with their rituals, they aim to heal the motherland. So they try to bring about change, positive change in society, but they do it through ritual. But these rituals, as we will be able to observe through this Crown of Light ritual, is that however concerned they may be with social issues and issues raised by globalization, these rituals remain focused on individual participants. and how they are, their qualities and their capacities. So, I will read this sentence because it's better if I read it. So, for me, the reconstruction of Proto-Hungarian religion and ritual participation seems to correspond to an effort of personal development in which cultivating one's magyarness, so Magyar identity, is held to be the condition of a social transformation, which means I have to become a better Magyar, and then social transformation may occur or not. Yeah, and I hope I'm in the right place. Yeah, no. Well, let's get back to this one. Still, an element, also an element on their political engagement, is that sometimes they're even critical with the power. Just a small remark. And another element is that no politician claims to be part of any neo-pagan circle, which is, I think, quite interesting, because if their aim was solely political, they would merge political circles and neo-pagan circles. So here we are in the intellectual circle, which is led by Gábor Pap, this man, who is an art historian and a very, very famous in these circles. He publishes lots of books. He has about 35 books already on all sorts of Hungarian questions, including the crown, of course. And, well, his story is quite long, but suffice to say that, yes, he is an art historian, and in the 80s, since the 70s, 80s, he gathered artists interested in folk art as a resistance against the socialist regime. So he was quite controversial in the 70s and 80s, but he always worked. He worked at newspapers and TV. So he always worked in the domain of culture. And he gathered lots of people who are these main figures of his circle. They present themselves as teachers. So they give talks in a bookshop in Budapest. So I will introduce you to some of them. So here is Lajos Szántai, who defines himself as a magyarságkutató, which is a researcher of Magyars, also a folktale specialist, and he has a huge knowledge about Hungarian history, about kings, and also the crown. He's really impressive. His talks last 3 hours at least. It's very interesting the way he speaks. Well, anyway, Aradi, he is a specialist of the Pilis Mountains, located in the north of Budapest, which are considered to be the chakra of the earth. It's a sort of a pilgrimage place. And here is one of the most senior members of this circle, Molnár V. József, who defines himself as a specialist of the folk soul. One of the areas, the main areas of specialization of Gábor Pap is the crown. So a few words about the Hungarian crown before I speak about how Gábor Pap conceives it. So, as some of you may know, this crown is ascribed to the first Hungarian king, Stephen I, who reigned between, in the beginning of the 11th century, but more recent research, since 1978, discovered that it dates back only to the end of the 12th century. But it is still ascribed to the first king, although we know that he never wore it. What gives this object its constitutional and symbolic power is that it has never been replaced. So, yeah. Sorry. Never mind. Okay, so the thing is that all Hungarian kings have been crowned with this crown until 1918, as it has never been replaced. And this gave rise to what we call the Holy Crown Doctrine, which is a very complex series of ideas about the crown. In brief, it supposes a metonymical relationship between the crown and the Hungarian nation, the country, so the territory, and its inhabitants. So what speaks about the crown, it means they're speaking about the whole country. It posits the crown as a legal entity superior to the king or the state. It really impersonates, does that word exist? Yeah, the whole nation. As if it were a moral person. This is what the quotation I was looking for, but I probably lost it somewhere. So there's this little motto about the crown that which I read in the work of a historian called László Péter, which says that it's not the monarch that inherits the crown, but the crown inherits the monarch. So that's the basis of this Holy Crown doctrine. So, in any case, little was known about this crown until the late 70s, when it was brought back from the U.S., where it was taken during the Second World War. And, oh yes, sorry, a very important element is that, I'm sorry, is what really shows the power of this Holy Crown doctrine today is that the crown was taken to the Parliament. It used to be in the National Museum, and now it's in the Parliament. So from a museal object, it became a political object. Yeah. So it's still this doctrine, it still thrives today. So, as I was saying, little is known about the crown as research has really begun on its formal aspects and its the way it was constituted and its whole history only started after 1978. So when it was acquired by the National Museum, historians of art, engineers, goldsmiths, and restorers started research on it, and some of them, not surprisingly, were defensors of the Holy Crown doctrine. And some of them even knew Gábor Pap, and even he could examine the crown. So these people, the adepts of this doctrine, were able to collect empirical data to support their ideas about the crown. So they examined its proportions, and they came to the conclusion that it has the proportions of the golden ratio. They examined the enamel icons that decorate the crown, and they drew astrological parallels between the figures and the planets and the zodiac. And they also concluded that the form of the crown was like there's a hoop and two straps, and that it resembled a Siberian shamanic headdress. And they also posited that these are the Gabor Pop's people. Let's recall that they considered the crown as a united object, although it was assembled of two different parts, the Greek and the Roman part anyway. But for them, it's a unique object, and they also posited that it must be a lot more ancient than Saint Stephen or Stephen the First. So here we can see the way they picture the crown, well, as a shamanic headdress, and here's a sort of a map of the crown. The names correspond to the icons we can see on the crown. They say that some of them must have been replaced. And this influences the way the crown may exert its influence. And for them, this is a system that the crown forms. It's an energetic system. So basically, what they say is that the crown is some kind of divine receptor, a receptor of divine energies. Yeah, that's, yeah. Now let's start to turn to the ritual, and first a few words of how I collected this data. So in the frame of my fieldwork, I go to this bookshop and I listen to the lectures. And once I had the chance to hear a lecture by Gabor Pop on this Crown of Light ceremony. The public was shown a film, which is a recording of a previous Crown of Light ceremony, which took place in 2003 on the Hero Square in Budapest. And it was recorded by the public television Duna, and it was shown on television. It was available on YouTube. I will show you some excerpts a little bit later. And at this occasion, I understood that this lecture was the first meeting of people who were to participate in a new Crown of Light ceremony in 2016. This first lecture was very important for a series of reasons, because I said it was the beginning of a new Crown of Light ceremony, so there were lots of people, and among them were the people who were to use the crown during the ceremony, so the officiants and their helpers. And I was able to hear about the first ceremony and some the way they think about the ceremony, their expectations, and the purposes of the ceremony. So at this occasion I learned that the first ceremony took place in 1980, so which is quite odd. I was really surprised because at that time these gatherings, especially religious ones, were not encouraged. So at this time, now we can see the crown in a public space, but at that time it was organized in a private garden. I learned also from Gabor Pop at this lecture that the ceremony can predict the future, or it can influence the future. So just an example, we will see how this ceremony happens. But at one point of the ceremony, the officiants who climb up the crown, this crown structure, they formulate personal wishes. And one of the participants, one of the officiants, said that the Soviet troops would leave Hungary eventually. So for Gabor Pop and his followers, it was clear that this was the beginning of the process which led, so their ceremony was the beginning of the process which led to the Soviet troops to leave Hungary. So we can understand that it's a crucial ceremony. So it's not just play. It's not just a representation. It's not theater. It's really, really serious for them. Okay, so this was one part of the way I gathered data on this ceremony. So I had the film on YouTube, so this recording of the 2003 ceremony, and I could follow the organization of this ceremony, which would take place in 2016. Can you follow me? No. So first, there was this lecture given by Gab Webpop when he showed the film on the 2003 ceremony, okay? And this lecture took place in 2015 as a preparation to a ceremony that would happen next year. So it's a very long process, this whole preparation thing. And there was a second meeting which was filmed and sent to the people who were following the bookstore online. So I was able to watch an edited version of this preparation meeting. I will speak about that later because it's crucial to the understanding of this ritual. I never participated in this ritual, which is quite odd because I'm a fan of participant observation, but this is how this played out. Anyway, so let's see how this ritual happens. It's pretty regular. It is organized with the help of a foundation called Mbethia, that is the Son of Man, which is quite anonymous, but it's composed by the members of Gab Webpop's circle. So this foundation lends this crown structure, the gowns and the masks, so all the ritual accessories, and they also organize the meetings for the prospective participants. So any collective, any group of persons can request to take part in a Crown of Light ceremony. These are mainly people who are engaged in what we call the preservation of tradition, hagyományőrzés, or people who wish to experience their Magyar identity in a more intense fashion. And all any group needs to gather are 16 men, because there are 16 icons on the crown. And they also have to gather helpers, because each officiant has one helper. So it's quite simple, it's quite straightforward. Anyone can request such a ceremony. The place of the ceremony is maybe quite varied, but well, more recently it takes place in public spaces. And the foundation says on its website that it should be a sacred place in a way. So like a church or a pilgrimage place, or an important place in any case. And the date must also be sacred, so it can be a saint's day, or it can be Christmas, as on the ceremony we will analyze more closely, or it can be a solstice or an equinox, and so on. But the interesting part about the whole organization is, as we will see, I will speak about that more in detail later on, is the choice of the officiant. So the choice of the men who climb up into the crown to impersonate the icons on the crown. And I would like to draw your attention to a contrast. Is that we can see that, well, we've seen that the crown is a major national symbol, so its use in a public space should mean that any Hungarian can relate to it in a way or another, because it's supposed to belong to all Hungarians. But as we will see, uh, the way the officiants are chosen does not quite reflect that. So it's a really very specific ceremony, and not a mere enactment of national identity. It's an enactment of a special kind of national identity, which is not basic Hungarian identity. So let's see. Yeah. What's interesting also about this ceremony, we'll see that later, is that the participants, the officiants that use the crown, that are called to climb up the crown and impersonate the icons, look pretty uniformized, like it evokes some kind of an undefined religious freery. So its references are quite Christian, so to say. And about this, I would like to open just a parenthesis, is that in this group, pagan and Christian identity do not exclude each other. They're complementary, because well, during my field work, I observed, and even during this ritual, is that Christianity is just another resource of another source of inspiration for the creation of new rituals and new practices, because they suppose that Hungarians were Christians from the beginning, that they're Christians since they exist, so before Jesus even. Anyway, this is a long story. There are several books about the Christian Hungarians before Jesus. So these close-up images are good, because later on we won't see them really well. The people who take part in the ritual, because it takes place at dusk. So spectators, the public of the ritual, is not able to see much. This is another important or interesting element. So this is the script of the Crown of Light ceremony, which of course can, the order of the actions does not vary, but what happens during the choice of music, for instance, can change from one ceremony to another. So the first thing, I took this script from the foundation's website. So there's the preparation. They usually play folk music. On Hero Square there was a reading of historical text related to the figures we can see so the Hungarian kings and all. There were quotes from all the Hungarian kings, which were read by the choir, who introduce the individual officiants and who conduct the ceremony. But at other occasions, this preparation can consist of prayers and even a Protestant service. So in 2017, there was another ceremony at Noemafa Park on a field, and I watched it a little bit, and old women from Transylvania were there to pray. They sung and they prayed, and then there was a religious service. Then the ceremony proper can start by the transformation of the officiants. So they put on their ritual clothing, this white gown and the masks, one by one, and they enter the crown. They have to climb up because it's a pretty high structure, and when they take the place of the icon they impersonate, they enunciate a biblical quote of their choice. And then when all of them are on the crown and have told their biblical quotes, there are 3 minutes of silent prayer. And then they listen to the national anthem, and then to the Seikei anthem composed in 1921, which is also an important date because it's just after Trianon. How do you say that in English? The
Trianon Treaty.
Yeah, the Trianon Treaty. And then, after that, they come down the crown, or they leave the crown of light's body one by one, and then they are called to speak once again to enunciate their personal wishes to their family, to the nation, and to the whole world. And these wishes, as we saw on the example of the first ceremony, can become reality. So now let's take a look at how it happens. So I will show you. Sorry. How can I?
Ograniczam.
Aha.
Big.